Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled CIA Murder, Amie Harwick, murdered at age 38. Alright, so here we go, diving back into the San Fernando Valley, Hollywood, CIA funded, supervised, managed pornography anthropology business devoted to pacification and control of the masses in the same way that steroid sports do, in the way that taking drugs or LSD can do, in the way of gambling can do, in the way of steroid sports gambling sport book can do, in the way of combining these things, porn, gambling, drinking, and sports can do. Okay? I hope you understand that pornography is a CIA engineered program. All right? Just like that's why all those sports teams are owned by fake billionaires, like Steve Ballmer owning the Los Angeles Clippers, or Paul Allen owning the Seattle Supersonics. Not to mention all the land above the Sharon Tate murder scene. You know, his Paul Allen Land Trust owns the land in atop Benedict Canyon, in close proximity to Anne Margaret and Eddie Murphy. They sort of, I think, are a part of the Paul Allen Land Trust. I think their cul-de-sac goes into the Paul Allen Land Trust. He's passed away, but the Land Trust nonprofit continues. All right, so we have a woman with raven black hair and red lipstick, and her name is Amy Nicole Harwick. She was born on May 20th, 1981 in Pennsylvania in a small town, and she came out to California way. She loaded up the truck and moved to West Hollywood, where she found a job in the pornography industry. She became a model for Playboy magazine, and then she became a dancer. That's code for nude dancer. She was a nude dancer, undoubtedly, for numerous clubs along Sunset Boulevard. That has been scratched and scrubbed from her Wikipedia site, so I cannot verify her nude dancing. But I can tell you that she is proud to have been a Playboy model. And I know that dancers generally won't get tips or paid unless they're nude. So I'm going to assume she was a nude dancer. Anyway, then she became a fake PhD from a fake sexology school in San Francisco, which is no longer in business. I will give you the details in a moment. So the media refers to her as Dr. Amie Harwick. However, when she's involved in the porn business as a model, she goes by her middle name, so she's Amie Nicole. Amie Nicole. Now, where have we heard that little trick before, right? Yeah, well, I'll tell you. How about Holly Randall? Remember Holly Randall? She has her own sex podcast show that features porn stars. Holly Randall, whose real name is Holly Knipe, spelled Knipe. Holly Knipe got into the business not from under a rock, but she was born into it because her father and mother were in the pornography business. They came from South Africa, made their way to London, England. Well, that's where her father, Humphrey Knipe, met her mother, Suze Randall, in London, England. You know, home of the smut magazines, like Mayfair magazine, right? In memory of Cass Elliott's death. All right, so anyway, Suze Randall married Humphrey Knipe, I believe in 1975. Let me see here. Yeah, 1975 they got married. And then that Playboy Enterprises with Hugh Hefner, which had a Playboy club in London, England, as you know, in the Mayfair district. In the Mayfair district, next door to the Grand Sheraton Hotel, was the Playboy Club. in close proximity to the Dorchester Hotel. It's kind of straddled between the Dorchester Hotel and the Grand Sheraton, is the building that housed the Playboy Club in London, England. Anyway, don't know if Suze Randall was present for the fake wedding reception on a Friday afternoon for Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski. She could have been. She could have been. But anyway, so she meets Humphrey and Victor Humphrey Knipe. His real name is Victor. Victor Humphrey Knipe. It's very hard to keep track of these people's names because they mix them up, right? So they're transferred to Hollywood and are assigned to the Playboy Enterprises right at the time that the Playboy Mansion opens up in Holmby Hills, adjacent to the Los Angeles Country Club golf course, and which is across the street from where Peter Falk lives, and Jimmy Stewart and Rosemary Clooney and Jack Benny, Lucille Ball, Ira Gershwin, and Walt Disney is close proximity. And then they're right down the hill from the Sharon Tate porn murder set. Sharon Tate was murdered on a porn site. So Sharon Tate was involved with porn in the fact that she was killed on a porn set, which I would call Sunbrook Drive, Bella Drive. That's what I would call it. But the media calls it Cielo Drive, where Jeffrey Franklin, a television producer, now lives in a mega mansion. All right. Anyway, getting back to Holly Randall, do you see how she got her name? Holly Randall was born in West Hollywood in the Presbyterian Hospital, which is known as Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center. I didn't know that. So they named their child, she was born September 5th, 1978, 3 years after her parents were married. Anyway, Holly Randall Knipe was named after the Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center, so they called her Holly. They just deducted the word wood. So she became Holly, and then she took her middle name from her mother's maiden name, Randall. So she was Holly Randall, Knipe. She was Holly Randall Knipe. That's what's on her birth certificate, Holly Randall Knipe. So Holly came from Hollywood, Randall came from her mother, and Knipe came from her father, Holly Randall Knipe. But she's in the porn business as a producer, director, photographer, and podcast host, and she goes by Holly Randall. Her parents got her into the porn business and built up her clients, because she's plugged in with all the porn companies and Playboy Enterprises because her parents were, all right? She also attended Holly Randall. It's so hard to keep track of their fake names. Holly Randall Knipe went to the Brooks. She went to this school called the Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara, which may be in Mendocino or it might be on State Street. It keeps moving around. It's hard. I talk about a business that keeps moving. It's out of business today. Eventually it got sold and moved to Ventura, and I can't find any evidence that it exists anymore. But anyway, so she learned how to shoot photographs at the Brooks Institute. Then she started working for her mother's porn site at age 20. Her mother, Suze Randall, operated a porn site. Suze Randall is still around. I believe she lives in Calabasas because that's where all the pornographers live, right? Calabasas. And I think Holly Randall Knipe lives somewhere in West Hollywood. Anyway, the reason I bring up Holly Randall Knipe is that it's the exact blueprint story of Amie Nicole Harwick, who goes by Amie Nicole when she's involved with porn, and then she goes by Amie Harwick everywhere else. Anyway, Amie Harwick is a noted author. She wrote The Sex Bible for Women, and she's presented as a sex therapist and a family and couples therapist, even though she has her PhD from a school that's unaccredited and no longer exists in San Francisco. Just stay with me. This is such a crazy story. This is a crazy murder. It's a CIA murder, okay? Even though it may not appear to be a CIA murder, there are CIA fingerprints all over the place. There's CIA all over Holly Randall Knipe. There's CIA all over Holly Randall's parents. There's CIA all over Anne Nicole Harwick. There's CIA all over her ex-boyfriends, plural ex-boyfriends. She has many ex-boyfriends. And, they got a guy that's sitting in jail waiting murder trial. It's been 3 years since her murder. And he looks guilty, he does. But, like I said, there's a lot, get in line. There's a lot of people in this story. So he's just one of many ex-boyfriends. So what I wanted to tell you is that Holly Nicole Harwick, born in Pennsylvania, known as an American writer and a marriage and family therapist. She's also known for really being in the porn business, a nude dancer, and working as a nude Playboy model. And she nude danced to pay for her post-secondary education. She studied psychology at California State Polytech University in Pomona, where she received a Master's of Arts degree from Pepperdine University. That's home to Lawrence Schiller, who's a CIA fake author, right? Pepperdine has a very, very shady reputation involving CIA activities, including fraudulent authors and pornography, which pornography is filmed all around the hillsides surrounding Pepperdine University, which they cannot deny. Malibu Canyon, Mulholland Canyon, the areas near the Mulholland, the Malibu gated colony has seen pornography. Topanga Canyon has seen pornography. There are many canyons all around Pepperdine University, Malibu Canyon being the primary one, and porn is filmed at many of the residences in close proximity to Pepperdine University. So they can go ahead and pound their fist on the table, and I could say they can go pound sand, because they're in a porn industry, okay? They're in the middle of a porn industry, which started in San Fernando Valley and spilled over to Calabasas, through Topanga Canyon, and over to Malibu. All right, so Harwick was living in West Hollywood at the time of her murder. She was definitely murdered. It's been ruled a murder by the medical examiner in Los Angeles, which I don't really believe anything they say, but it does appear that she was murdered. I don't go by what the medical examiner says. And to be specific, you can't get this in the media, but you get it here on this channel. She was murdered at 2086 Mound Street. That's spelled M-O-U-N-D Street, Mound Street, 2086. Google it. It's a cul-de-sac. She's the fourth house from the dead end of the cul-de-sac, Mound Street. It is 1.2 miles from her house to where Janis Joplin was murdered on October 4th, 1970 at the Landmark Hotel in room number 104. It's 1.2 miles. She's also 1.2 miles away from Ashley Ellerin's murder by the bayoneted 46 times when she had a date with Justin Kutcher, who lives, I believe, in Calabasas. Anyway, she's 1.2 miles away from the murder site of Ashley Ellerin, who was murdered on Pinehurst Road, which is 2 blocks away from Charlie Miles Maddox's free apartment, and where Charles Watson had a free apartment, and where Bernard Latza Papa had a free apartment. There's Ashley Ellison, 1.5 blocks away, murdered there on February 21st, 2001. Anyway, Lindsay Perlman was murdered over on the west side of Hollywood Freeway in Runyon Canyon. She was murdered recently on February 18th, 2022. And we have Amie Harwick murdered on the east side of the Hollywood Freeway, again at 2086 Mound Street. And she was murdered on Valentine's Day evening into the wee hours of the morning, around 1:15 a.m., somewhere between 1:05 and 1:15 a.m. on Saturday morning, the day after Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day was Friday, February 14, 2020, and she was strangled and then thrown over her balcony onto her patio courtyard, whereupon she was transported eventually to Cedar-Sinai Hospital, where she was pronounced dead at 3 . 3 3:30 a.m. in the morning. I wrote it down and I can't find it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. She lingered for a while and they pronounced her dead after 3 a.m. in the morning. The Cedars-Sinai Hospital is 5.5 miles away from where she was murdered. All right, she was engaged to Drew Carey for 10 months, maybe 9 months. She met him during a party, a Hollywood party in 2017. She became engaged to him in January 2018. If you can't already tell, she works fast. The engagement was broken off in November 2018 because Drew Carey was considered a person of interest in this murder since he was an ex-boyfriend, ex-fiancé, and she was murdered within 2 years of their breakup, right? They broke up sometime November 2018. She's dead on Valentine's Day 2020. So actually it's more like a year and 3 months, right? Within 15 months of breaking up with Drew Carey, who's a former United States Marine Sergeant E5 class and hosts his television shows, he was going to marry Amie Harwick, although she doesn't really appear to be the marrying type of a girl. I don't think she'd make a particularly stable wife. She's in the family and marriage therapy business, which is cover for I work in porn, because she's not collecting any serious money from that. I'll tell you why. I can say that with confidence. At the time of her death, she's working for Pineapple. Pineapple is a CIA clandestine service company who provides counseling to adult performers in the porn industry, okay? It was formed after the murder, which the coroner labeled as a suicide, of porn star August Ames. That was on December 5th, 2017, and then sometime during 2018, around the time that Amie Harwick and Drew Carey got engaged, this Pineapple company, nonprofit, was established that gives free counseling to porn stars and supposedly collects this money from Pornhub and Hamster and Chatterbait, and which are all CIA companies, based out of Toronto in the case of Pornhub. Toronto, which brought you Neil Young, which brought you Stephanie Powers, which brought you the Jewish pharmacist couple that was murdered in Toronto, Canada. It is a high concentration of CIA activities, Toronto, Canada. So what I wanted to tell you is that Amie Harwick was working not as a therapist independently. She was on the payroll for Pineapple, which I believe is a porn clandestine service counseling company. All right, now let me go through kind of they got a guy that they arrested who was her ex-boyfriend. She had a 4-year relationship with this fellow. This fellow is Gareth Pursehouse, and he's currently, under arraignment and charged with her murder. He's charged with first-degree murder, first-degree burglary for getting access to her home, and special circumstances of lying in wait. So under those 3 charges, he's been in jail now. Initially was given a bail bond of $2 million, which seems excessive. You won't be surprised to know that he lives in Playa del Mar, which is Silicon Beach, which is a military facility adjacent to Marina del Rey, the murder site of Dennis Wilson and the disappearance of Anne Heche and the new Rhodes School for Dakota Johnson and the brutal murder of Dorothy Stratton and the signing of her first contract with MGM and CBS. Sharon Tate at Culver City MGM Studios is close to Playa del Mar, where this fellow who's being portrayed as the murderer of Amie Harwick, Gareth Pursehouse, he's also described as a software engineer, but that's not really what he does. He does photography for the porn industry. He's in the porn industry too. He takes photos. And one of his number one models was Amie Harwick. That's how they met. He took her photo. Amie Harwick, who went by Amy Nicole. You seen a pattern? So anyway, the media will tell you that the software engineer is a crazy dude, and he strangled and had a syringe full of nicotine that was left on the balcony, but his fingerprints aren't on that. They claim that they have his fingerprints on the French doors leading into the living room, and that they have some of his fingerprint smudge on Amy's fingernails, if you can believe that. You do know the fingerprints on exterior settings, they disappear very quickly. So you got to take those fingerprints within 12 hours if they're outside. If they're inside the house, fingerprints could perhaps last a couple of days. But that's something that people don't realize, is the fingerprint DNA dissipates very rapidly. So anyway, there's this, supposedly, the media keeps referring to DNA, they're referring to fingerprints. And they think they have his fingerprints on the French doors and maybe a smudge on her fingernails. And then they have a lot of people saying that he got into a shouting match with her a month earlier at a porn party hosted by none other than Stormy Daniels. You know, Stormy Daniels, Donald Trump, Stormy Daniels. She was the hostess of the party at the JW Marriott Hotel in downtown Los Angeles for the adult magazine known as XBiz. It's the magazine for the porn industry. And of course, invited guest was Alana Evans, who's the president of the APAG. I didn't even know they had that. Adult Performer Actors Guild. So it's like SAG is to Hollywood, APAG is to porn Hollywood. See, so they have dossiers on everybody. They had a dossier on August Ames, the porn star who was murdered in Camarillo near Oxnard in Ventura County. They've got one on Amy Nicole Harwick. Listen to the names of the friends. On Valentine's Day, Amy didn't have a date, but she went out with her girlfriends. And some of her girlfriends are Cleopatra Slew, Jasmine St. Clair, Sharon Little, Grace Stanley. Does that sound like porn star names? Anyway, so on the Valentine's morning, she did a hike with Cleopatra Slow in her neighborhood. Now that's kind of a question mark because there's no sidewalks in her neighborhood. And it's kind of dangerous to just walk around that neighborhood. There are parks nearby. But anyway, according to Cleopatra Slow, they did a walk through her neighborhood, and she pointed out a lot of historical places. Yeah, like murder sites. Then they went to breakfast at the Beechwood Cafe, which is very close by. It's just a couple blocks away. That's the street that the Monkees used on their albums, Beechwood Drive. So they went to the cafe in closest proximity to the address for the Monkees. Remember the fake band that was created by the Brill Building and RCA? Don Kirshner. Don Kirshner created the Monkees, and he gave them the address of Beechwood Drive. And this is where Amy Harwick and Cleopatra Slew went to breakfast after their hike. Then later in the day, Amy got dolled up and had a rosary bead necklace and, a red sweater. And she went to the Globe Theater to see a strip show, aka burlesque, where she has a friend named Miss Tosh, T-O-S-H, Miss Tosh, no first name. And she hosted the impresario performances where Amy took photographs of the nude dancers. And then at 10 o'clock, the show ended and there was an after party. But according to the story, which who knows if the story is correct, but according to the story, Amy elected not to go to the after party at the Globe Theater, which is downtown Los Angeles. In case you're wondering, it's about 5 miles away from her house. It's a 15-minute drive. No, it's 7.5 miles away. It's 7.5 miles, take about 15 to 16 minutes to get from her murder site to the Globe Theater. It's about a 16-minute drive, 7.5 miles. But instead she went to Nomad's for tea. And she claims to be doing that around 10 o'clock. Now, that's near the Janis Joplin murder site. That takes her closer to home, right? Because this is 1.1 miles away from her home, the Nomads for tea. Now, she apparently would probably get there around 10:30, I'd say, but she doesn't return back to her residence, again, at 2086 Mound Street. She doesn't return home until 1:02, when she texts a friend. She texts a friend named Robert Kushland, who has an alibi. I believe he's out of the country. Robert Kushland, regarding a restaurant in Los Angeles. And then she goes into the house, whereupon she's murdered. So she had to be murdered sometime between 1:04 a.m. and 1:15 a.m. So allegedly the killer is waiting for her in her bedroom on the third floor. It's a 3-level home. Now, she has a roommate. She has a male roommate. This is very strange. This is very strange. She has a male roommate. And his name is Michael Herman. And he's in the sleeping area on the ground floor, the bottom floor, which is where the garage is. There are 2 garages, and I guess his bedroom is behind the garages. And Amy went in through the front door and then can go up the staircase to her bedroom on the 3rd floor. Her body is found, of course, on the patio, which they're telling me it's only a 20-foot drop. Doesn't seem that far. But anyway, she's getting home at 1:02. What I can't, in my mind, get my head around is why you would have tea for 2.5 hours. If you're having tea at 10:30 p.m., what's taking so long? I mean, you're only a mile from your house. So it only should take 5, 6, 7 minutes to get home from there. Maybe 10 minutes if you hit some stoplights. But the thing is that what are you doing having tea for over 2 hours? No matter how you slice it, it's minimum 2 hours for tea. Just seems like a really long time to be having tea at Nomads. Anyway, that's the story, that she drank a lot of tea and then she went home, whereupon she was murdered. And according to the district attorney, it was, of course, the 6 foot tall, 6'4", 220-pound murderer, who we all know, his name, I keep forgetting, Gareth Pursehouse, software engineer / porn photographer, and he did it, right? He's the one that did it. And he certainly does, have a lot of incriminating facts, and I don't deny that at all. What I'm saying is he's the obvious suspect, even though he hasn't dated her for over 10 years. They broke up in 2012. That's 8 years ago. What the hell is he doing wanting to strangle and throw her off her balcony 8 years later? Their relationship has been terminated for 8 years. They had an on-again, off-again relationship for the 4 years. From 2008 to 2012, they were off and on constantly. And now we've had 8 years of off. So, okay, so he's a stalker, although he hasn't been charged with stalking. And I guess there's no evidence of his stalking. There's just a lot of rumors and innuendo. But he does stand 6 feet tall, 6 feet 4 inches tall, and he weighs 220 pounds. Amie Harwick is 5'5", 120 pounds, so she's very petite compared to, the burly Gareth Pursehouse. But you should know, when they met at this porn party hosted by Stormy Daniels on January 16th, 2020 in downtown Los Angeles. This is just before the COVID operation got going, right? Because they don't have parties like this anymore. Anyway, he had a very nice, amicable conversation with the president of the Screen Actors Guild for Porn, the APAG. Elena Evans had an extensive conversation with Gareth Pursehouse, and she didn't notice anything unusual about him. He then had a conversation with Amie Harwick, who he saw, and they got into a shouting match, allegedly, where he called her a bitch and that she ruined his life, allegedly. Okay. Anyway, so they're saying that he did it, but there's no witnesses. And the problem that I have is, of course, there is Michael Herman, the roommate, and he's there. And he is a witness, but he didn't see him. He didn't see the murderer. And he's sleeping downstairs. And he said he got up and he hollered up the stairway. But then he went to call 911 with his cell phone, but he couldn't find his cell phone. So then he was afraid to go up the staircase. So he went out the side door, climbed over this precarious wall and into the neighbor's yard, knocked on their door. They didn't answer. Then he went across the street, presumably to 2085 Mound Street. They didn't answer. Then he claims he saw someone on the street at 1:15 a.m. in the morning who had a cell phone, and they called 911 around 1:30. And then the paramedics came over, and then they took her to Cedars-Sinai, where she would have been arrived around 2 a.m. in the morning. And then she's declared dead around 3:25 in the morning. So I don't know what to make of this Michael Herman roommate. I mean, maybe he did it, right? I mean, he was there. He's in the downstairs unit sleeping, and he said he heard a plate crashing around 10:30, but he assumed it was Amy being Amy, so he went back to sleep. So he didn't investigate the plate crashing, which might have been the French door glass being broken, but again, there's nothing in the story that said any windows were broken. There are supposedly surveillance cameras, closed circuit TVs that show someone entering the property, but there's no descriptions of where. You do know that I'm all about the perimeter homes. This place is a kill box. There are at least 4 different ways to get onto this property. You don't have to use Mound Street to get on this property. Use the street below. Ivar. There's a street below that would be ideal for gaining access to the patio area. However, I don't see how Michael Herman wouldn't hear anyone out back. I mean, he's on the ground level. All right, so we got a lot of question marks here. It's kind of a slam dunk case. They're going to, I think, convict Gareth Pursehouse. But when I am telling you, whether Gareth Pursehouse, who's 3 years older than Amy, they were dating when Amy was maybe 24 years old and he was 27 years old, and they dated for 4 years and then broke up. And at the time of Amie Harwick's death, she was 38 years old and he was 41 years old. This is back on Valentine's Day 2020. So you'll have to judge on this. I mean, it does look bad for Gareth Pursehouse, but I'm telling you that when the murder victim is in the porn industry and works in the porn industry and works with Holly Randall, has done interviews with Holly Randall on her podcast, which is part of the Playboy Enterprises and part of San Fernando Valley Porn, and whose mother lives in Calabasas in the porn business, and whose father is an anthropologist for sexology in the porn industry. And I have lots of questions. And all my questions are mostly unanswered. So I'm not satisfied. If I was a juror, that I would be convicting Gareth Pursehouse. I also don't understand why his bail will be $2 million, and I don't understand why he lives in a CIA colony known as Playa del Mar. It's where Phil Hartman came from. That's where Robert, the Chicago songwriter, Robert Lamb, that's where he came from. Karen Lamb died in Playa del Mar. Phil Hartman died in Encino, but was living in Playa del Mar. I can go on and on about Playa del Mar. It's a CIA hotspot. So, is he a Manchurian candidate? Was he doped? I don't know. What I can tell you is the school where Amy Harwick got her PhD is called the Advanced Study of Human Sexuality. Unfortunately, it's no longer in business. It was a school that existed from 1976 through 2018, where it went bye-bye. Its president of the school was Ted McIvena. McIvena. Whoever he is. It was a for-profit graduate school, and it had its little run that, lasted 20, 30 years, right? So it had its run. So that's that. So that's my story today on the Amy Nicole Harwick murder. Strangled and then thrown off the balcony where she had trauma, blunt force injuries to her head. Dead as a doornail. 1.2 miles away from Janis Joplin's murder site, 1.2 miles away from Ashley Elleren's murder site, approximately 2.5 miles away from Lindsay Perlman's murder site. Lindsay Perlman, who was murdered at age 43 on February 18, 2022, after the death of Amie Harwick. It's a kill zone, kill box neighborhood. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Bye-bye.